This presentation will introduce you to the new ICD-10 Diagnosis Form and reasons why it is necessary for you to know how to update diagnoses to ICD-10 diagnostic codes. This process starts in mid-July and must be completed by September 30th to meet the October 1st, 2015 federal deadline.
Will this new diagnosis form be used throughout ICD-10, and will this form replace the current diagnosis form and the diagnosis form included in the ICD-10 admission and discharge bundles?
Yes, the new ICD-10 diagnosis forms will replace the current diagnosis forms beginning July 15, 2015. This gives you some time to learn about the new ICD-10 diagnostic codes and the new ICD-10 diagnosis form.
Well, what do you mean? I'm not sure I understand.
Well, Center for Medicare Medicaid Services has mandated that in order to submit billing, all claims for services must use ICD-10 diagnosis codes beginning October 1st, 2015. Claims for services provided prior to October 1st, 2015 must use ICD-9 codes, not ICD-10 codes. All service providers will need to manually update each client's diagnosis using the new ICD-10 diagnosis form and then save it.
So you're saying that the focus for this training is to demonstrate use and functionality of the new ICD-10 diagnosis form. And because the new form provides mapping between ICD-9 and DSM-4 codes and ICD-10 and DSM-5 codes, staff are required to update each client's diagnosis now. The ICD-10 DSM-5 diagnosis will be saved to the client record. This will ensure Telecare meets the compliance standards of billing using ICD-10 DSM-5 codes by the October 1st, 2015 deadline. Why is this happening?
Well, the United States is the only nation that has not implemented ICD-10 coding. ICD-10 codes provide recognition of an integrated, whole-person approach to healthcare. The behavioral health substance abuse industry will now be put in the same league as medical. There is more coding accuracy and specific information for providers and payers, faster reimbursement, and improved ability to measure quality, safety data, and clinical financial performance.
And does this apply for all Telecare clients?
No, this conversion will apply to clients currently open to services. Because the ICD-10 mandate begins October 1st, 2015, these open clients will need to have their diagnoses edited. Here is the new ICD-10 diagnosis form. Take a minute to review the new layout.
Gee, I see that all of these fields have already defaulted in, and they look the same as in the current diagnosis form. The type of diagnosis, the date and time of diagnosis.
Correct. See those two drop-down boxes on the right. We will ignore them for this part of the training.
Our first task is to show you how to update an existing diagnosis to include the ICD-10 code.
Step 1. Select your client and open the diagnosis form. The first thing you will see is the episode pre-selection screen. Highlight the open episode and click OK. Once you have selected the episode, a diagnosis pre-displayed screen will appear that shows diagnoses already entered for this episode. Highlight the diagnosis you wish to edit and click the Edit button.
Remember, you will need to edit every diagnosis for this client's open episode in order to complete the conversion to ICD-10. That diagnosis box looks new.
Yes, this is a multiple iteration table. There will be a row for each ICD-9 diagnosis. This grid contains a ranking, which includes the primary diagnosis and the billing order. A text description used to look up or search for ICD-10 codes. Status that displays if the diagnosis is active or inactive. An estimated onset date is optional, which is the date the diagnosis was originally given. A classification is currently set to DSM-4, which will allow continued use of a 5-axis diagnosis. This is true for California programs, as DHCS has not yet determined a start date for DSM-5. Resolved is a yes-no determination regarding the specific diagnosis. Bill order is used for claiming. The remaining 2 columns are for ICD-9 and ICD-10 codes. Let me show you how to size the description field so that you can see the full description if it's not available. Place your cursor in the header between the description and the status columns. Your cursor will change to a double-headed arrow. Hold down the left cursor key and slide to the right or left to see more or less of the diagnosis description.
Thanks for explaining the grid, but please tell me, what do I need to do to add an ICD-10 diagnosis?
That's easy. Pick a row to update and click the cell with the header of ICD-10. Look below in the Diagnosis search field. The description from the selected row will be displayed. Next to it is a box labeled Code Cross-Mapping. Please note that codes for ICD-10 and DSM-5 are still missing.
Now, let's search for the ICD-10 code. Click the magnifying glass icon in the Diagnosis search. Be patient. This may take a minute. When the search is done, you will see the first 25 possible matches. Find and click on the diagnosis you wish to use. It will become highlighted. Now, double-click to have it populate the Diagnosis search field. Notice that the ICD-10 and DSM-5 codes now populate the Code Cross-Mapping box.
Cool. I see the ICD-10 code for the diagnosis you just selected is now displayed in the Diagnoses grid. Let's consider this possibility. Sometimes it may not be so easy to select the appropriate diagnosis.
For example, there may be many possible matches. The search displays 25 matches at a time, so you may need to click on the Next 25 or Previous 25 button that displays at the bottom of the search window to find the diagnosis you are looking for. You may need to make a clinical decision in order to select the description from the search that best matches the existing diagnosis. Check with your supervisor about this if you are unsure. Well, what if the search yields no match found? I see you were looking for an ICD-10 code for diabetes mellitus without mention of complication, and no matches were found.
You can try typing in the ICD-9 code found in the Code Cross-Mapping box into the Diagnosis search field, then press Enter. This will often return a list of valid diagnoses.
You can also try typing in a keyword from the existing diagnosis into the Diagnosis search field and press Enter. You may have to scroll through the search result list in order to find the matching diagnosis. Use the Next and Previous buttons already described to navigate. These are great tips. I guess I need to repeat this for all the diagnoses in the grid.
Yep. Continue editing all the rows in the grid that have a blank ICD-10 code. When you've completed editing and all the rows contain an ICD-10 diagnosis code, you must click the Submit button to save your work. Great job!
Yay!